want to mention something, ladies and gentlemen, that's maybe a little bit obvious, but we just can't go ignoring it. We are gathered here today in the shadow of the war in Ukraine. CEEQA has always stood with Ukraine as an important part of our catchment, of the coverage. All the Ukrainian projects and companies have won a number of awards over the years. It's very much on our minds tonight, and it will be tomorrow. In fact, we're going to be joined now online by one of the CEEQA jurors in Kyiv, who wants to show us live feed from one of the retail centers he represents, which got heavily damaged by a Russian missile. Ladies and gentlemen, Maksym Gavryushyn, COO Badhouse Group, is in Kyiv, not far from Nikolsky Center. Maksym, we're trying to put him online now. Maksym, can you hear us?
You can now see Maksym on the screens. Please give a round of applause to Maksym, who has been our juror remotely working with us.
Greetings from Kyiv.
Good evening, Maksym, and thank you for sparing the moment. Could we please ask you a few questions about exactly what the situation is right now? You're in Kyiv, but Nikolsky Center is also in Kharkiv. Have both centers been damaged? How badly? What can you tell us about them?
Actually, we have two shopping centers damaged. One, our shopping mall, was damaged on the first day of the war when Russians entered the city. They just fired up on our shopping center called Fabrika in Kherson. And in a few days, Russian missile hit our another shopping mall in Kharkiv, Nikolsky. And the explosion and fire significantly damaged the equipment, air ventilation, conditioning, facade, interior decoration, glass facade. So the preliminary estimates the replacement cost for Nikolsky is about 15 million euros, and the replacement cost for Fabrika in Kherson is about 18 million euros. And we have already begun repair works in Kharkiv, Nikolsky, and last week we have opened on the ground floor with so-called critical infrastructure shops, supermarket, drugstore, electronics. Not so many shops are now open in Kharkiv, so it's very important for the city, and people can also use our shopping center because we have underground floor parking. They can use our shopping center as a shelter also. Okay. So as you may know, the last days were not easy because Russians have launched in 4 days about 200 missiles. And you definitely heard about the horror in Kremenchuk, where 20 people were killed and about 60 people wounded because of Russian missile.
That's really terrible what you're saying. And since you have the first-hand experience, can you tell us a little more how the war is affecting you personally and your family and your friends?
The war is affected everyone in Ukraine. As you know, we have maybe 100,000 of wounded and killed. We have 7 million refugees. We have millions of people who have lost their homes. A lot of families are split now. As for me, for example, I haven't seen my family for 4 months already, so it's also a huge difficulty. And a lot of people in army. We have now about 1 million people in our army, and a lot of my friends and employees also are in army, so it's also difficult.
Maksym, you mentioned something about the fact that you've already begun to renovate, to repair the damage, that you're not giving up. Can you tell us, do people actually frequent shopping centers in Ukraine? Do people go shopping? Do they spend time there if they can?
Yeah, now we have about 70% of GLA opened in Ukraine. It really depends on the region. West, center of Ukraine, north of Ukraine, almost all shopping centers are open. In Kyiv, we have 90% of the shopping centers open. In the east, we have about 10-15% of GLA opened. So it depends on the region. But in average, we have 70% opened. And about 20% of GLA are damaged or destroyed. In total, we have 24 malls already damaged or destroyed. It's about 1 million square meter of the GLA. The Russians say that they hit only military target, but in fact, civilian infrastructure suffered the most. And the most suffered residential. As you know, we have a lot of peaceful cities completely destroyed, such as Borodyanka, Bucha, Irpень, Severodonetsk, Lysychansk, Mariupol, many cities and villages. And in total, we have now destroyed about 13,000 apartment houses completely destroyed, and 108,000 private houses completely destroyed. So it's very difficult, and we have a lot to do to rebuild, and only for the residential infrastructure recovery we need more than $60 billion. In total, we have like a group of volunteers. I'm also participating in this project called Russia Will Pay, and we now, according to the last update, last report, we calculated that the total need for commercial, social, transport infrastructure recovery is about $172 billion. That's only infrastructure property recovery.
Maksym, this war will be over, and you will rebuild Ukraine, and you will get the money. It's incredibly frustrating to be standing here in Warsaw, not being able to do any more than we already have done, other than accepting the refugees into our country. There's very little we can do, but Ukraine has been granted EU candidacy status, and we're hoping that this is going to radically change the situation.
Yeah, we have been waiting for such news for 8 years, and to be honest, if this had happened earlier, then the war probably would not have happened.
Exactly.
Let's be honest that 1 year ago, no one cared about what is happening in Ukraine. And now, when Russia attacked us, everything has changed. And if before that Ukraine was like a gray zone between Russia and West, and our future was uncertain, now we finally got the answer about our future. Now we finally know what we are fighting for, and we are now really feel like part of the European family.
We're absolutely convinced that you will win on behalf of CEEQA.
That's also a good signal for investors, because Ukraine is not saturated, and the European company knows that Ukraine is the last not saturated, absolutely empty country in terms of the high quality commercial, residential, offices, etc., etc.
Yes.
So Ukraine has a huge potential, and we are investors just awaiting the signal to enter. And I believe that we already have such a signal.
And the potential that you will use, we are absolutely convinced. Maksym Gavryushyn, thank you very much. We don't want to ever see such pictures as we have seen from Kharkiv, from Kyiv, from Kremenchuk, where another shopping mall was leveled to the ground. So we're keeping our fingers crossed very heavily for you, for the whole of Ukraine. Maksym Gavryushyn, COO, Bat House Group in Kyiv. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you, Maksym. Thank you.